Hello and welcome to the Rupeeting podcast. My name is Ayush, and we have Chaitanya on the panel today. And we have another new member who will probably stick around or hopefully stick around for longer than the other dudes in our small little company have. We have Prateek Bafna on the podcast today. Say hi to everyone, Prateek. Everyone, matlab,
Hi
aisa
guys.
50 people maybe. But like, yeah.
Whatever small
Hi.
amount of people watches
Small
us.
amount of people. Prateek is a content and research intern, so he's involved in all of the research that we do, that we give
Mm,
you on the podcast, and helps us do a lot of stuff that's important for repeating running as a company as well. So good to have you on the podcast, man, and hopefully I won't have to do this shit anymore and you can take over. Yeah. Speaking of shitty things, did you guys know that about 1 million people die of HIV AIDS every year?
mm. Oh,
Million people.
I did not.
Billion people. That's not a lot
That's
of
a
Damn.
people
sad
if
fact.
you look at it like as a global population scene. It's like
Yeah, but
point. But yeah, still 1 million people dying of a disease that
mm,
people still haven't found a
anyone
cure for.
dying is a sad part. Million
Yeah,
of them, though, it's a million
million,
times sadder.
millions. क्या बात बोली है वाह चैतन्य wow.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, but yeah, but even though HIV is not curable, there's a lot of medication out there that helps manage the symptoms and stuff like that. So we have a company in India which is also listed, which is a market leader
Mm,
in one of those drugs that's available to help you manage if you have HIV and AIDS. And that company is known as Laurus Labs.
yep.
Yeah. A lot of people in the
Favorite
past week,
among the
whenever,
investor community as well.
sorry.
Favorite among the so many
Oh yeah,
investors
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
since
like it's no wonder that the
yeah,
stock is up like 5x in the past 5 years,
yeah.
right? After being like stagnant
Mm,
since its IPO in 2016 for about 4 or 5 years, it suddenly shot up during
mm,
COVID and hasn't come
Yeah.
down since. So a lot of potential that the investors are seeing in it, and the name's kind of funny because in the past week, whenever Pratik and I were researching about it, and I'd tell my friends that oh, this week's podcast is going to be at Laurus Labs. The only thing that they could think about is Lauda Labs. So it's a immature, very immature audience we have, but
18
we
plus content advice. The
18.
disclosure, I think you should give away
Yeah, that's
a
the
couple of
there. We put
things.
it on YouTube anyway that this video is not for kids. So, but yeah.
And we
So yeah,
don't give any advice,
we don't give
nor
any. Oh yes,
medication, nor
correct. No,
yeah, yeah,
neither medication nor financial
nor
investment.
financial advice.
This is
Yeah.
all for fun and education. So coming to the actual education part, uh,
Hmm.
while this company is the market leader in all of these HIV drugs and is
Yeah.
known in the world for this, that's something of a business that's been dying for. Dying is the poor choice of words considering,
Yeah.
but
Stagnating.
stagnating business, and they've been trying to
Yeah.
move out of it and get into something far more lucrative. So let's look at
Hmm.
like the story of how Laurus Labs has been, what have they been up to over the past decade, and why they even got into the whole. So it's called antiretroviral drugs, the ones that help you
Yeah.
manage HIV. So how
HIV.
they got into that and why they got out of it and what they intend to do over the next 5 years. So yeah, pretty cool. HIV. I mean, HIV is not cool. It's the
Not
fact that they
cool.
don't have
Yeah.
it. Yeah, HIV is not cool at all, guys. You
It's
don't
cool
have to
that
get
the
it.
business is stagnating because number of people having HIVs are stagnating. That is
Yeah,
cool.
that's a great
But then
point.
the pharma community won't be happy with this. Their
Exactly.
Yeah,
business
Yeah,
but
won't be
humanity
booming.
over capitalism, bro. क्या तू
it's such
ये
a sad
बिल्डर का
like.
बेटा ऐसा ही रहेगा ऐसा पैसा पैसा
But it's
लोग
such a
मर रहे हैं
sad
बट
way
हमारा
to.
profit कम हो रहा है तो that is not a good thing ऐसा है इसको
But it's such a sad way to
तो
look at it.
gonna
Like we're talking about stuff like how, okay, as you mentioned, right, number of HIV patients in the past 5 years has not increased by a lot, a couple of thousand here and there,
हाँ
but in the grand scheme of things, it's still like 0.5% of the population and it's
हम्म,
remained utna. So because of that, and that's a good news, right? Like not more people are getting, so
yeah
they're
yeah
talking about prevention rather than cure and stuff like
cure
that. But the pharma industry is like nahi margins nahi बढ़ रहे, so they have to exit
हाँ
out of an industry entirely because they're not making enough money.
hmm. Or maybe Laurus did such a good job that they ended the new patients of HIV. That is also one way to look at it.
गांधी फाड़ दिया, like quite literally. Quite literally. There's no
America
way you can
for
get
the
HIV.
information.
But yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, that's a good point, right? They really did do a good job because so 2013,
Hmm.
2012 is when they really got into the whole HIV space by coming up with this new drug, not new drug, but a drug that they were very good at producing because they somehow got the manufacturing cost down by 60% by replacing like a couple of things. So
That's
one of those
crazy.
ingredients was like $60 a kg, and they
Yeah.
replaced it with something that is $6 a kg and was very easily
Hmm.
available in Hyderabad, where the company set out of. So
Hmm.
by doing that, they almost instantaneously got the highest margins possible for the product at that point of time, and market leadership to just follow suit after that. I think they
Hmm.
really did well. I think and it's also a point that you guys mentioned earlier that these guys only enter a business where they can be top three manufacturers, or they just don't enter it.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Right.
that's a pretty cool
So it's
aspect.
not that they invented a new medicine. It's just they invented a new way to make the same medicine.
Yeah, correct, correct.
Yeah. And
So
also,
I think
do
they
they
found
have
that
any patent? Did they have any patent for that or not? Not something.
maybe for the manufacturing process because they do
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
like over
Process patent.
200 patents that like cross not just
Hmm.
like so they call it APIs, right?
Yeah.
Active
Active
pharmaceutical
pharmaceutical
Active
ingredients.
pharmaceutical
ingredients. Yeah.
ingredients.
That's
Yeah.
just the molecule or the chemical composition, but they
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
have patents for the way they manufacture certain things.
The process
So
patent.
correct, correct. So that's probably what they had for the HIV drug. But then I think patents also have like a lifespan, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
that patent will eventually lose its lifespan, or already has, because as we've seen from 2013 to 18, while they had like insane market leadership and the highest
Yeah.
margins possible for this
Hmm.
particular drug in the world. In fact, they were the only ones in the world who got approval for another HIV drug, which is now one of the most commonly used ones. I can't pronounce it for the life of me, but the US FDA
Yeah.
gave Laurus Labs the first permission to produce that drug. So they did
I think
really
it's
well.
dolutegravir. Dolutegravir.
Yeah, correct. That's if that's how you pronounce it, then that's the medication. So yeah, that eventually
And
then replaced the previously one that they made, which
yeah.
is called efavirenz or something like that. Yeah,
Efavirenz, yeah, now I remember.
yeah, right.
Efavirenz.
Hmm.
So they did really well till 2018, and then uske baad, everything went to shit because people realized that, oh, we can also do this, and the patent
Yeah.
expired, and they started like everyone started using the same mechanism for producing, so that entire pricing gap
Hmm.
that they created went away. So now everyone's
Yeah.
making HIV drugs for cheap. So when there's so much competition, market leadership goes for a toss, margins goes for a
Hmm.
toss, it becomes a dying business.
Considering that most of the revenue was dependent on this thing at the same
75%
time.
of that revenue was
Yeah.
dependent as of 2018.
75% of business is in threat. So that's definitely not a
Almost
good thing.
instant. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and then this calls for a need of diversification in the business. Obviously, you can't depend on one particular business model to
Hmm.
take you forward or to grow the business to another level. So I think as
Yep.
Chaitanya asked that Chaitanya had this question, right? That do they make new drugs or do they just make existing
Yeah.
drugs?
Yeah,
So
Hmm.
interestingly, Laurus at around 2018, they started this business of CDMO, Contract and
Yeah.
Development Manufacturing Organization, which is CDMO is. So they make
Hmm.
so they provide you end-to-end solutions to other pharma companies for
Yeah.
making drugs and other substances for them.
yeah,
So
Hmm.
in that, the Laurus Labs does make new drugs also. They do contract research for other firms also.
yeah.
And so
Hmm.
as Chaitanya as yeah, they are into developing new drugs as well. So they
Oh,
started this
nice.
business somewhat at around I think 2017 or 18, and at that time their share was a mere like 9 or 10%. And now
Of
Hmm.
cut to
revenues, right? Yeah.
2023, yeah, and now cut to
Hmm.
2023, they've taken it to 36% of the revenues. So it
That's very
shows
cool.
that
Hmm.
yeah, that's very cool,
Yeah.
and it shows that yeah, they have been successful in
Hmm.
diversifying their business from ARV to getting
Hmm.
into new avenues like CDMO. So, and
So
Yeah.
as
it's
opposed
very
to earlier,
yeah.
where they were only, let's say, majority business was just making this
Mm-hmm.
particular ARV drug or HIV drug. Now with CDMO, they can make anything, and like they make everything from scratch. Is that what you're saying?
No, so in CDMO also there are few different types of services. So for
Okay.
certain companies, they might want to manufacture a new drug which has never been there.
Right.
So
Okay.
Laurus does that for them, and then certain
Okay.
companies provide their own knowledge, provide their own API,
Formulation.
and
Yeah.
Laurus develops drugs for them also. So
Okay.
Laurus is
Good.
in all stages of drug development.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Nice.
and in
Hmm.
CDMO, then they also help in making nutraceuticals, cosmetics, and now interestingly, they're venturing into crop sciences, animal
Yeah.
health as well.
Yeah.
So, but
Hmm.
these are the future drivers of the growth for Laurus, is what I
Yeah.
think.
Aren't they also? I think it came in the news recently that they're entering the whole like animal protein thing. So they want to make animal-free protein, and they're creating like the chemical compounds for it.
Plant-based meat or something like that.
Plant.
yeah. They make proteins for them, yeah. So I
That's
think
pretty
that
cool.
is in
Nice.
the biologics division of Laurus and
No,
not
no.
in the
Do they make
CDMO.
protein for? Do they make protein for animals, or they make protein without animal
The
Protein without
latter.
inputs?
animals.
The latter.
So
Protein
for
without
humans
animals.
only. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, for
Got
humans
it.
only. Yeah.
So vegan meat kind of thing.
Sort of.
Vegan meat
Yeah.
kind of a thing. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, and
Nice.
there's one
Nice.
interesting fact about the division that as the industry practices of having 3 to 4 scientists per project, but
Yeah.
Laurus has around
Okay.
750 scientists and 60 projects, which brings the number to 12 to 13
Hmm.
scientists per project. It
So they have like
Yeah,
three,
that's
four times
crazy.
the
Cool.
Three, four
workforce.
times.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it shows that Laurus is in a sweet spot to cater to
Yeah.
such large and complex
Hmm.
Yeah.
manufacturing processes as
Also,
well.
I think more the scientists, the faster you can create a drug. Assuming that, is it
Hopefully
that
it's
way?
not like a too
Or
many cooks spoil the broth situation also, because if there's too many
yeah,
people
of
working
course.
on one thing, then to
Yeah,
Loud
they
Island
always
will
go
That's
be.
also true.
competition and all those things.
Yeah, yeah.
But then I think then certain
Hmm.
processes require much more steps. So maybe that is
Yeah.
why Loris keeps on
Correct.
having a
Plus, they
great
were in
number
a
of
very like
scientists per
niche
project.
space before this, right? Like
Yeah,
maybe the HIV industry needed as many scientists on a particular project because of the research that
Hmm.
it was. And even with now, if they're creating drugs end to end, including the research, then that 12 to
Yeah.
13 number becomes very important because there can be
very
a
important.
dedicated
Yeah.
team towards just researching the
Yeah.
creation of the API. That's very cool.
That's
Nice.
true.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But can we say that they only diversified into CDMO because they noticed that the existing business is threat? Because if that's the case, then they should have started this way before, right?
I think it's two ways. One, that
Yeah.
they finally realize that the ARV business is bottoming out in terms of the incremental value it's adding to the business.
Hmm.
Because if they don't have that pricing power thing anymore, then what's the point?
Hmm.
But they also
Got it.
recognize the fact that CDMO is a growing opportunity. So I think
Hmm.
2018 is when almost the entire pharma space decided to start up setting up the entire CDMO segment.
Okay. Okay.
So everyone's actually, it's not like Loris is unique in its idea to enter CDMO.
Yeah, of
Everyone's doing
course.
it. Yeah,
Bunch of businesses would do that
bunch of
CDMO.
businesses are
There's
doing
nothing.
this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's
So
the
Hmm.
fact that Loris, again, as Pratik mentioned, they have the
Hmm.
entire scientist workforce that's three
Thing. Yeah.
times the industry average.
Industry
Uh,
average. Yeah.
we've also spoken about the fact that they have multiple patents and they're very like great at the whole manufacturing
Hmm.
process thing. But I think what's also interesting is another point that you mentioned. They're entering very niche fields like crop
Yeah.
science, agrochemical, animal health,
Hmm.
proteins, stuff that the country needs, and there's minimal competition. So within the
Yeah.
CDMO space also, they've identified things where they can be
Hmm.
top three manufacturers.
yeah, that's
Nice.
true.
Yeah.
Also, I was reading this interesting fact the other day that I think US has passed a not pa yes, US has passed a
Right.
bill that says that all the Chinese manufacturers in the biologic space or in the
Yeah.
research space which
Right.
collaborate with US companies are a public threat, are a threat to the national security of US. So
Of
basically, it
course.
means US
Of
is
course,
trying
because
to
of the
diversify its own chain. Yeah. So
hmm.
Of
that
course.
means it
Because of
might bring
their
a lot of
special
opportunities to
lovely
Indians as well.
Special delivery
US
system.
has yeah.
So that can also be a
US,
growth trigger
yeah.
in the CDMO
Hmm.
space for the
US
company.
US China love affair has always been beneficial for India, that is for sure.
On Holi on Monday, we'll see one big Chinese water balloon flying in with drugs in it.
Mm.
Dude, it's like India is the best friend and
Yeah,
China is the
yeah,
boyfriend.
yeah, yeah.
India is waiting
My
for the boyfriend to
God.
get dumped.
Yeah, yeah. This is the best
I
friend
think
scenario.
Pratik has
That's
something.
actually very
Pratik has,
true.
Pratik has, I think, some personal connection with
Pratik
that
is the.
reference. I
It's
think.
just about whether
Oh
Pratik
my
is
God,
India
no,
or
no, no,
Pratik
no.
is China. Which one is
So why, वहाँ पे just emotional
emotional
roller coaster.
अत्याचार?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, but coming back to the Laurus Lab, as Pratik mentioned, that they are diversifying away from their HIV business. So for that, of course, they need money. So they have allocated close to 3,000 crores for the capex and acquisition over the last 2 years for the same thing.
If
And
their revenues of like 6,000 crores, आधा revenue
yeah,
उसमें ही चला गया.
50%. Yeah.
Yeah,
They have to now
yeah.
because of, as we said, 75-80% of their business is red.
yeah,
So when that happens, you have to take drastic steps.
of course.
But fortunately, they have also allocated most of the capex. So out of 3,000 crore, around 2,500 CR is
Yeah,
allocated to non-HIV, non-ARV business, which is the next growth driver, as Pratik mentioned, the agrochemicals and animal based. And I think they are also venturing into NC, which is new chemical entity
right.
manufacturing. So 2,500 for that, and rest 500 is for towards another motto which Laurus Lab has to invest in the future, which is not that Laurus Lab particularly had this motto, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So it invests very interestingly. It invests in some institution such as IITs. There's some another one called ImmunoAct. Interestingly, the ImmunoAct is the one who developed the CAR T cell therapy for the cancer
Oh
patients.
yes, yes, yes.
So
Very
yeah.
true.
So that has also been very successful. In the I think out of 100 patients, 60% of them shown very good
Showed
improvement
promise.
because
Yeah.
of their
And I
that's
think
therapy.
Laurus
And
Labs'
Apollo,
involvement in this is also because
yeah,
of their, like, mainly because of their
yeah,
manufacturing and cost efficiency bit. Because they are
yeah,
handling the fact that the cost is going down by about
going down.
1/7 to
Correct,
1/8
correct.
of the price.
Yeah, so they hold close to 30-40% in this ImmunoAct
Yeah,
company. So whatever the growth this have ultimately will transfer to Laurus because of the
correct.
stake. And Apollo Hospital is the one who was the first private, I think, hospital chain who started this. So which is a big thing, of course. Apollo is the biggest hospital chain in the country.
Hospital chain. Yeah.
तो if this
Yeah, so
therapy
say,
is a success, then तो ऐसा लंबा खींच
yeah,
जाएगा.
Oh yeah.
They'll
yeah,
take
yeah,
it
it will have
far ahead, yeah.
Laurus will have significant benefit. That's what we can
Hmm.
say.
I mean, significant is a stretch because all of these, so this 500 crores that they've invested in
Uh-huh.
these companies, it totally makes up for maybe 2% of revenues. But
Yeah,
we
but that
add to
is the
that
thing.
brand value.
No, no, but even if the therapy goes like exponentially good, so
Yeah.
that will also impact not on the, of course, operations may it won't
Yeah.
impact because it is not their job to do,
But it'll
but
be a
because of
great
the stake,
achievement.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
and also the stake they have in the Immuno
Correct.
Act,
Right.
that will also have.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the CAPEX, as you mentioned, 50% of the revenue. It has been what's dragging the margins as well in the last 2 years. So EBITDA dropping from 36% in the from to 26% in the last 2 years. So, but hopefully, as the capacity will start generating revenues, and I think asset turnover is somewhere around 0.9x currently, which is expected to go northwards of 1.4x. So hopefully
So
that
basically,
drag,
पूरा पैसा वसूल हो
yeah,
जाएगा in 5 years.
हो जाएगा. Yeah, yeah, hopefully that will turn out. So that is the plans for the Laurus Lab in the next chapter,
Pretty
diversifying
cool.
away from the ARV. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Pretty cool. I think the stock actually it's moved so much since COVID.
Huh.
Initially, it was because so they were the one of the like people making Paxlovid for India and the US.
Huh.
So that initial boost was because of that, and now again, like in the past 6 months, investors are seeing
Hmm.
immense amount of value again because of all of these like new things they're doing.
Hmm.
So, I mean, if we had to say something about valuations, it is the fact that
Hmm.
people think the price is a little dicey, but there's also that much value that Loris is adding to not just the industries that they're
Hmm.
in, but the investors that have put in money.
At least on
But
paper, it is reflecting.
on paper,
Which,
though, it makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we have to see whether it
See,
will materialize
shareholder.
over the
Yeah.
next few years. Hmm.
Very true. So yeah,
Also, for our readers, if you want to know more, you can always refer to the blog, which has definitely more information than what we
oh yeah,
talked
for
here.
sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We'll link
Huh.
it in the description below, and you can check out our website
Hmm.
for further information.
Yeah.
Cool. That's about it, guys, for this
Nice.
week. Tune in to next week for yet
Hmm.
another interesting story or
Hmm.
industry or sector that we cover.
So,
And until then, have a great weekend if you have a long weekend, and happy
yeah.
Holi.
Happy
And
Holi, guys.
Happy
don't
Holi,
take
Yeah.
HIV
guys.
on Holi because there's a lot of people like spitting on you and stuff.
Huh.
Yeah. Take care. Chalo.
सावधान रहे,
That's a
ठीक,
wrap.
सतर्क
चलो
रहे.